welcome to the SIP Shelter in Play series on the Stir podcast. I'm your host, Trish Muyco-Tobin, and I'm joined by my guest co-host, movie maven extraordinaire, Debbie Baldwin. Debbie, do you hear what I hear?
Jingle bells.
Sleigh bells ring. Are you listening? So welcome back, Debbie. This episode is actually the second half of a two-parter for us. Last week, we presented you with part one of our must-see holiday movie list. And for that list, we actually focus on some offbeat, zany holiday movies, mostly comedies, and a few that really have gone on to achieve cult status. This week, we are featuring more traditional Christmas movies. And when we say traditional, we're talking about heartwarming holiday classic films, including
not Die Hard.
Not Die Hard, not Die Hard, including a film that really has been hailed as a classic to define all holiday classics. And I think when you find out a reveal at the end of this program, you will agree. Deb, what to you makes the perfect classic holiday film?
It's just got to be about the feels. Like, these are all movies that make you really want to embrace the holiday spirit and, get along with that sibling that you can't stand the other 364 days of the year and, make it through your holiday dinners with your family with a smile on your face and say, this is what it's all about. These crazy people in my life, whether they're friends or relatives or parents or children or siblings or spouses or anything. And, just have that sense of warmth and connection that the holidays hopefully bring.
Which hopefully will carry on throughout the year. All right. So speaking of feels, we're going to start off our list by mentioning a group of animated made-for-TV movies that really set the standard when it comes to holiday classics. And every time they're on, Deb, they just bring on a wave of nostalgia. And you label them aptly as the animated bundle. And these were really movies that were released mainly in the mid to late 60s, beginning with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, A Charlie Brown Christmas, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Frosty the Snowman, and Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
And it just puts a smile on my face. And when you start to see an ad for them that they're coming up, or when you think about Hervey, who wanted to be a dentist, or Mr. Heat Miser, or Snow, the abominable snowman, or Frosty, or, all these crazy characters that are so burned in your memory from watching them as a child. And you and I have discussed this too. The greatest thing about these, the music is fantastic. You just hear that little tinkle of a song from any one of them, and you're just taken right back into the moment. It's great. They're all short. Yes. They all still, even if you're watching them without commercial interruption, they still have the little break where they originally were, there was going to be a TV commercial.
Yeah.
And even that is part of it for me, like that just old school animation magic. It's great.
I agree. And for me, you mentioned music, and for me, it's that jazz soundtrack by Vince Guaraldi in A Charlie Brown Christmas, which is just so unforgettable and just really gives you all the fuzzies that you need to feel. Also, that movie broke many rules back in the day, including the use of non-use of a laugh track. It did not use a laugh track, as was common back then. Also, they used real children's voices instead of employing adult voice actors for the kids in the movies, because they were kids. And also, this is something that really came as a surprise to me, but this is the one Charlie Brown film in which Snoopy's doghouse is blue. And in later episodes, it's going to be your iconic red Snoopy doghouse.
Counterintuitive. You'd think that the Christmas doghouse would be red.
Right, right. And it makes me wonder now if they did that because they wanted it as a contrast to those Christmas lights, which would be red somewhere there. So, so yes. And also another mention, and you know, another one of my more favorite movies is How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And it was a surprise to me to find out it was Boris Karloff, who is not only the voice of the Grinch, but also the narrator.
I mean, is that not fantastic? You know, iconic, you know, haunting voice of Boris
Yeah,
Karloff as the Grinch, which is so perfect and
so
wonderful.
perfect.
Yeah, it's great. The Grinch is my favorite one, and it always will be. Max the dog, you know.
Oh, Max.
I mean, that scene when he sends Max out in front of the sleigh to, you know, mush him down the mountain. And he follows the reins under the sled, and he looks up, and Max is in the back, on the back, just riding along.
Yeah, I think he was my favorite character in the movie, Max the dog.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so that's your animation bundle. Yes, and so we're going to move on to our full-length theatrical films. The first one comes to us from 1947, and that is The Miracle on 34th Street. And also important to mention that there was a remake of this movie in 1994, but the 1947 one is hard to beat.
It is one of the greatest movies of all time, not just Christmas movies. Miracle on 34th Street. If you haven't seen it, it stands up. It is riveting. Everything from the Macy's Gimbals rivalry, even though there's no Gimbals anymore,
Right.
Is the Thanksgiving Day parade. Everything is so resonates with viewers. This old man who is maybe not right in the head, thinks he is Santa Claus and is hired by Macy's as a department store Santa. And he basically just touches the lives of everyone in his orbit who are a little, you know, not right in one way or the other. And he helps them, and they end up helping him. And the little child in the movie, who wonderfully is portrayed by a very young Natalie Wood.
Which I didn't know until recently.
The film won 3 Academy Awards. One for acting, who was Edmund Gwynn, who played Kris Kringle, won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor in a Film. And it just really puts a smile on your face, this movie. It's a lot of the, I mean, I'll let you like take the ball and run with it from here, because I know you're going to talk about they were shooting the scenes during the actual Macy's Day Parade.
And how can you beat that?
And in the department store.
Yeah, so the movie came out in 47, so the sequences for the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade were filmed during the 1946 parade the previous year. Yeah, so they went with it and filmed the movie scenes right as the parade was going on. And if you can believe it, this movie was released in the summertime, Debbie, which a little, you know,
this
really?
is the craziest thing.
Right, because the studios believed that moviegoers were more likely to go out to the theaters and see a movie in warmer weather. So if you have seen the original publicity posters for this movie, they really played down the holiday aspect of the movie. But later, of course, wised up publicity efforts for when the video came out, they really definitely went heavy on that Santa imagery.
Yeah. The other great story I love from shooting this movie is that one of the actresses, I don't know if it was Maureen or O'Hara or another one, had asked the crew for security for the scenes when she was shopping doing her Christmas shopping in the film, and they said, don't wear sunglasses, don't wear a scarf, just go in and do your shopping. No New Yorker is going to look twice at you in the throes of their holiday shopping. And sure enough.
Right. Isn't that right? So we mentioned that there was a remake in 94. Unlike the 1947 version, though, the department store Macy's declined to be involved in this remake. And so the one big change, huge change, was that the department store in the remake had to be renamed Kohl's because Macy's declined to participate.
Yeah, and that the remake is not terrible. It's Richard Attenborough,
No.
Dermot Mulroney. It's a great cast. They rewrite the script a bit, calling into question some of the religious aspects of Christmas.
Hey, Deb, is it Dylan McDermott?
Oh, sorry. Did I say Dermot Mulroney? You can't tell the difference between those two guys. I think we should just keep rolling. Like, I think we should leave this in. I'm not convinced that Dylan McDermott and Dermot Mulroney are two different people. Has anyone ever seen them together in the same room?
No. You're right about that.
Anyway, it's a great cast. Dermot Mulroney. I'm just kidding.
Like, wait a minute.
It's a great cast. Richard Attenborough, Dylan McDermott.
Yeah.
With a script that was rewritten to its detriment, in my opinion, with a lot of religious commentary that's, in my opinion, not really appropriate. But nonetheless, it's an okay remake. The 1947 version's absolutely the one to go with if you want to show it to your grandchildren or your children, or just rewatch a great Christmas movie.
Still definitely stands the test of time. And, you know, this next film will definitely be one of those films I believe will stand the test of time. And it also stands out on this list just because it's the one film that doesn't really focus on Christmas, but instead focuses on the Thanksgiving holiday, which is just fine with us because really, you know, here the holiday season officially kicks off at Thanksgiving, and we are talking about the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
And what a fantastic film. And this is one of those films that kind of straddled both weeks of our categories because there are some hilarious, oh my God, this movie is when you take two comic icons, Steve Martin and John Candy, and put them in a movie together, which is the whole movie is the two of them, you're going to be scraping yourself up off the floor. I mean, you can't be talking about comedies and have someone shout out the line, "Those aren't pillows," and not know what scene exactly you're talking about.
Right.
John Candy plays in this odd couple scenario the messy, fly by the seat of your pants traveling salesman seemingly without a care in the world. Steve Martin is the buttoned up type A businessman trying to get from New York to Chicago in time for Thanksgiving with his family, and ends up stymied at every turn with a very semi-helpful John Candy there to get him various forms of transportation, hence the title, to get him back in time for Thanksgiving. Meanwhile, there's this very heartwarming undercurrent in the plot that makes the film absolutely a must-see holiday film.
And you know, my gosh, the icing on the cake, Debbie, that the film is written and directed by John Hughes.
Another John Hughes film. You got to start thinking if there's a Chicago component, right, John Hughes must have something to do with it.
Exactly. So if you were to guess what rating this film got, do you remember what it was?
I'm running through my head all the scenarios, and I'm going to say PG.
Actually, it was an R because there was this one scene, and it's an unforgettable scene at the car rental place.
I know what you're talking about. I was going to say.
Marathon car rental, which lasts exactly 1 minute long from the time Steve Martin begins his tirade that was laden with the F-bombs.
Like 17 F-bombs, right?
18.
18. That was really close.
Yeah. And so that was the scene that gave this film an R rating, but it was also the one scene that convinced Steve Martin to do the movie. So
that's awesome.
It is great. And then another good news about this film, Deb, and I know you're going to be excited because according to Screen Rant, Paramount, the same studio that released the original, is working on a remake. And not only
Oh,
that,
I did know that. Yes.
it's
With
starring
Will
Will
Smith,
Smith and Kevin Hart.
Kevin Hart, right. And the real question is, who's going to play which role?
You know, I asked myself the same question when I found that out.
You just assume that Will Smith is going to play the Steve Martin character and Kevin Hart's going to play the John Candy character. But wouldn't it be interesting the other way around?
Each one would be capable of playing either role. They're both so talented.
Absolutely. And I just saw, I just watched The Wedding Ringer the other day with Kevin Hart, who has, that role has a bit of a dramatic component to it. And he really, I wasn't sure that, he's such a great comedian, but does he have the acting chops? And he really does. So it'll be great to see the remake of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, what they do with it. I'm not a fan of remakes of these fantastic movies, but just putting people of color in the roles and putting
these two particular actors,
particularly talented comedians and actors, I think they've got a winning combination there.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. So we've got that to look forward to. And our next film now is from 1990. And in fact, the highest grossing movie at the US box office that year. And it is the movie Home Alone.
Home Alone is a 10 out of 10. It's an absolutely flawless movie, in my opinion. It is John Hughes again, Chicago.
Yeah.
And just that story of a harried couple with lots of kids and cousins and relatives going to Paris for the Christmas holiday, and they accidentally leave one of them behind, little Kevin McAllister, played by Macaulay Culkin, and his exploits in defending his home from intruders. The intruders are the burglars, played by Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern. Every moment of this film is priceless. We have mentioned before that Chris Columbus, who did some rewriting on the script, and has been known for injecting an element of depth or seriousness to what would be otherwise fairly lighthearted holiday movies, wrote in the subplot of the old man neighbor in this story, which in my opinion is the one thing that really pushes this movie over the top as the perfect Christmas movie. It's charming and funny. Another interesting little story about this film. Okay, so Catherine O'Hara plays the mother. John Hurd plays the father. Catherine O'Hara won't stay in the Paris airport in Charles de Gaulle to get the morning flight back because she has got to get back to her child. So she ends up in a very Planes, Trains, and Automobiles type of way, going back on this very circuitous route, one part of which involves John Candy as a member of a polka band in Kenosha, Wisconsin, who gives her a ride part of the way in the back of their U-Haul truck. Chris Columbus was so appreciative of John Candy stepping in and playing this role. It was a one-day shoot.
He flew in for one day.
$400 as a friend to the director and the screenwriter, that Chris Columbus allowed him to go off script and improvise. And hence you have one of the craziest scenes in that movie. John Candy sitting in the back of that truck with Catherine O'Hara talking about about being trapped in the funeral home with the dead body. I mean, there's this whole, the various polka bands he plays in. It's really a really charming, entertaining sideline in the movie.
It's so bittersweet when you see that now, because you really think about what a great loss it was when we lost John Candy.
Yeah.
I mean, he was such a comedic genius, and it seems like that really showcase
absolutely
how great he was.
Yeah. Oh, completely. Yeah.
So this movie was heavily marketed as a family film. It had a PG rating, much to the chagrin of the actors who played the villains. Again, Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern, who both found it very challenging to control themselves on set and on camera with those cuss words, especially because, you know, Macaulay Culkin was around. Joe Pesci especially found it rather annoying that he couldn't really be himself.
Let his Goodfellas out.
Yeah, his inner Goodfellas. He found it difficult to not say the F word. And so the director recommended that he say fridge instead. So fridge in this and fridge in that. And
which is funny because Joe Pesci at times almost comes off sounding like one of those Bugs Bunny cartoon characters. You know what I mean? When he's like stomping around, he can't swear.
right.
It comes off as almost like a Warner Brothers cartoon character a bit.
There you go. So those were the circumstances when it came to those two foul-mouthed villains who weren't able to fully express themselves. The great news is that this film is showing on Disney Plus. So
now here is a little bit of trivia for you.
Oh, all right.
Speaking of family film, and we've talked about how Brian Doyle Murray often appears with Bill in his
Bill
movie.
Murray, yes.
Macaulay Culkin has a brother, Kieran, who has recently become very successful in the HBO, very popular HBO show Succession. And he, I bet you didn't know that Kieran Culkin plays Fuller, the cousin who wets the bed in Home Alone. Macaulay Culkin, when Kevin McAllister begs his parents not to make him share the pull-out couch with Fuller, because if he drinks too much water, he'll wet the bed. That's Kieran Culkin in that role.
I'm gonna have to check that out again. You know, those Culkin boys, when they were little, they were just the most adorable things.
Yeah. Home Alone, you can never get tired of it. I could watch it. I mean, they should, that'll be the next 24-hour
There you go.
movie marathon, because I could just watch it over and over again.
And I really think I feel the same way about this next movie that came out in 2003. I can't believe it's been that long already since this movie came out, but it is the story of Buddy the Elf, and it's already establishing itself, you know, in the pantheon of holiday films, and that is the movie Elf starring Will Ferrell.
Yeah, this is Jon Favreau directed this film, making, you know, he's made a great transition to behind the camera, and he's directed Iron Man and a bunch of other really entertaining films. The Elf is another flawless, in my opinion, holiday movie, 10 out of 10 for me, with a cast that includes, Will Ferrell as Elf, as Buddy the Elf. Then you have Ed Asner as Santa Claus, Bob Newhart as Papa Elf, James Caan as Buddy's biological father, his wife Mary Steenburgen. I mean, it just goes on and on. Zooey Deschanel as Buddy's paramour. Every scene in this movie is fantastic, funny, entertaining, and you know, the Baldwin family, starting December 1st, we stick to the 4 major food groups: candy canes, candy corn, and syrup.
But have you tried it with spaghetti?
Maybe on a dare, but not as a meal.
Well, unfortunately for Will Ferrell, he had to eat that concoction. Of course, that famous scene, the dinner scene, and it did not go well.
And it was more than just that. I mean, he was crumbling Pop-Tarts on top of it. He had every kind of sweet you can imagine in that spaghetti.
And as you can imagine, it made him sick. He vomited, and the scene had to be reshot. And of course, again, he had to partake once again. Apparently, he was suffering headaches throughout production due to the fact that, you know, just the sugar consumption.
Sugar.
Yes. So, yeah, but my God, it's such a perfect package of a holiday film. And I think, you know, for those of us who really are fans of it, just enjoy it for what it is, because guess what, Debbie? Don't count on a sequel. Will Ferrell reportedly turned down $29 million to do a sequel. If you're going to turn
Well,
down
good for him. I think
$9 billion,
that sometimes those sequels really take the wind out of the sails of the film. And the first film, the only elf film, I guess, hopefully, anytime you imagine a scene in your head, you just start laughing. I mean, whether like, if you think about him prying the gum off of the banister of the subway out on the street and popping it in his mouth, or the scene in the conference room with Peter Dinklage when Buddy calls him an angry elf.
oh
And
my God.
dives across the table to attack him. I mean, it's just like every scene is hilarious and engaging and fun and funny, and what a heartwarming message. It's just the optimum Christmas movie, in my opinion.
Can't really improve on that.
Yeah.
All right, so our next film completely missed when it came out, but from what I've seen of it, the trailer, great cast, great premise, and that is The Family Stone from 2005.
Okay, so The Family Stone is a different kind of movie. It's a little more serious. It's kind of a dysfunctional family drama. Dermot Mulroney plays. Now I'm like, was it Dermot Mulroney or was it
Dylan Dermot? Yes, it is Dermot.
Dermot Mulroney plays the oldest sibling in this Stone family who brings his soon-to-be fiance home for the holidays, who's played by Sarah Jessica Parker. The family does not like her. She is a very buttoned-up type A corporate shark, and this family is a little more laid back and go with the flow. And they don't really mesh well. The parents and the family are played by Diane Keaton and Craig T. Nelson. The cast is phenomenal. The story is just a very simple story with complexities of the characters.
Yes.
And that the Sarah Jessica Parker character and the Dermot Mulroney character realized during the course of this encounter with his family that maybe they are not meant to be. But Sarah Jessica Parker does start to forge a bond with the brother, played by Luke Wilson, and Dermot Mulroney has a similar experience with a friend of the family who's played by Claire Danes. Then the cast, rounding out the cast, is Rachel McAdams. It's a phenomenal cast with a very quirky, entertaining storyline. And I think it probably escaped a lot of people's notice when it came out. It just, for some reason, didn't register on people's radar. I don't know why, but it's a really good, entertaining, fun holiday film.
I was going to say, like I said, the premise is really attractive to me, and
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to put it on my list because it is the kind of movie that you're right. You want to get lost in and just not think too hard and just fun with it.
And especially if you're looking for a film that you haven't seen before, because so many of these movies, you're like, oh yeah, you're right. Elf is great. Like,
right.
That's not news.
Well, talking about movies you've seen over and over again, for me, this one, my gosh, my husband is so frustrated that I've seen this movie like 27 times. And that is the film Love Actually from 2003. And this movie, really the storyline begins 5 weeks before Christmas. And the movie is all about, 10 stories that are actually interconnected. And you kind of figure that out as the film progresses.
Yeah. And I will say, Love Actually is on the list. It deserves to be on the list. It is not my favorite movie. I think that it is too cluttered with these subplots, many of which don't resonate with me, and I think the film would be better served without them. Some of the plots are incredibly engaging. Hugh Grant plays the Prime Minister of England, and his plot line revolves around his infatuation with a new employee at 10 Downing Street.
The assistant, Natalie, yes.
Yes. And, and the other thing, and you and I have talked about this before, the thing that makes these movies of this this style of movie compelling is these interlaced storylines. So then you have Hugh Grant's sister, who is married, played by Emma Thompson, married to Alan Rickman, who is being unfaithful. You have her best friend, who's played by Liam Neeson, who is recently widowed, and his struggle. Now that is actually a very interesting storyline, because Liam Neeson is a stepfather to a boy whose mother passes away.
Right.
So Liam Neeson now is raising this child who's not his biological child, it's his stepson, without the biological parent in the picture anymore. Really modern concept, really well done. One of the most touching parts of the entire film, in my opinion. The boy announces to the Liam Neeson character that he's in love.
Yes.
And Liam Neeson is going to help this little boy woo his love interest. And it's just charming and wonderful. That being said, tell me which plot you would cut out of this movie, Trish.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I could have gone without the Colin story. Colin is the one who was obsessed with the American Girls.
Oh, the two guys who want to go to the U.S.
We lose that and come up with a better movie. My gosh, lost patience with that plot the first time I saw the movie.
And for me, it's the two fluffers in the porno movie who, as charming as it is, and I get the comedy of it, like it's not subtle, that these two fairly wholesome people are stand-ins for adult film stars, and having, and he's trying to date her.
Yes, you're
the
right.
movie would have been better served without that storyline as well, I thought, and there were maybe even a couple of others.
Yes.
The big winner for me, and I don't know if the Hugh Grant one is my favorite or the Colin Firth one is my favorite.
Those two are my top. Colin Firth, of course, is a writer who is estranged from his wife after he catches her with another man.
With his best friend, right? I think he's cheating on her with his best. She's cheating on him with
her brother.
Oh, it's his brother. That's right.
It was his brother. And then he, retreats to this I don't know where it was.
Country house, yeah.
Country house, yes. Where he meets Aurelia, who is kind of like the housekeeper assigned to work for him during his day there.
And she's Portuguese, and he doesn't speak Portuguese, and she doesn't speak English, and it's the love story of two people who have to communicate in some other way than words.
Yes. So for those of you who are fans of the movie, I think, though, one of the burning questions, definitely for me, and I've spoken to others about this who are just wanted to know what really happened post-movie with the family of Alan Rickman and Emma Thompson. Those two were married in the movie, and they were alluding to the fact that Alan Rickman's character, Harry, was fooling around with his secretary, Mia. And the script editor for this movie, Emma Freud, actually, for some reason, was just randomly live tweeting one day about key plots in the movie. And this is one of the issues that she addresses, talking about, what did happen between Harry and Mia. And she tweeted that, yes, it was indeed a full-blown affair. Her exact words were, it was the whole way. And so there you go.
On whose authority is she tweeting this stuff? Because, is she just deciding? I mean, I happen to agree with her. I think Alan Rickman absolutely had an affair with that woman.
Well, I think she worked on the script. Emma Freud worked on the script with the writer, director, Richard Curtis, who also happens to be her real life partner. And so they worked on the script together, and she hinted that she did not want that affair between Harry and Mia to go all the way, but it was Richard Curtis who said, oh yeah, all the way. That's what's gonna happen. So she said that, and then also, from there, question about the marriage between Harry and Emma Thompson, Alan Rickman's wife, if the marriage survived the affair. And Emma Freud said, yes, it did, but home isn't as happy as it once was. So, take it or leave it, but I don't know. I don't know if it really,
All I can think is that scene when she thinks she's getting the gift. Emma Thompson's character thinks she's getting the gift that he's bought for the secretary. She opens the box and it's something else, and it's like this double crush because she realizes not only that he didn't give her this beautiful necklace, but that he got it for someone else, and it's the most
such a painful,
heartbreaking scene.
And to have her in the bedroom by herself,
right? And that's just
heartbreak for her.
Right. And she's the ever stoic, supportive wife and mother who doesn't want anyone to see her crack.
Yeah.
And she has that moment. It's wow. That's a very powerful moment in that film.
Scene. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Just you watch her face and the range of emotion she goes through. Anyway, also according to Emma Freud, Richard Curtis, the director, named Colin Firth's character Jamie, just so the kids can say, I don't know if you remember those cute little kids saying, I hate Uncle Jamie,
I hate Uncle Jamie.
Yes. Richard Curtis's real life brother is named Jamie. So he wanted that in the script.
Well, there you go.
Yes. And so there you have it. Love Actually, love it or hate it. It definitely is very, very prevalent during the holidays now. It's really.
We can do a whole podcast on that kind of ilk of movie that with Valentine's Day and she's just not that into you, and Love Actually, and like parse the minutia of all those little subplots that are going on in each one, and crown the champion.
Yeah. All right, so our next movie, actually our next two movies were two movies that came out in 2006, and I didn't realize it, but looking at them side by side, I'm really surprised that either one of them made money because the titles are they cannot be more similar. I am talking about The Holiday and The Last Holiday. We're gonna first talk about the movie The Holiday, and that is the one, I just thought, my gosh, the casting was pitch perfect. You've got Cameron Diaz, Jude Law, Jack Black, and Kate Winslet.
And do not forget the fifth character in that little grouping, which is Eli Wallach.
Oh, yes. All right.
This movie, The Holiday, if you have not seen The Holiday, it ranks right up there with the best Christmas movies. I mean, it's a wonderful, wonderful film. And the premise is that Cameron Diaz plays a big-time Hollywood. She creates movie trailers. It's her job. And she is the go-to person. And she makes a ton of money. And she has a boyfriend who is less than faithful, played by Ed Burns, who has a very small role, but is always a pleasure to see on screen. And she decides she needs to dump him and get away from LA for the holidays. And she goes through this service, sort of a kind of an Airbnb situation where it's a swap.
Like a home exchange, yeah.
Yeah, home exchange. And she finds Kate Winslet, who lives in a village outside of London and has had enough of her life with her unrequited love for the publisher at her newspaper. And she decides she's going to head to LA. And so these two women switch places. And I mean, I don't really want to give anything else away. I
really think that's all you need, but it's so good. It is such a pleasure to watch, and
Yeah.
not just for the story, but just watching these actors on screen interact with each other. And they're such eye candy to begin with,
I
you
know.
know.
And well, and you've got, the Cameron Diaz character who runs across, the Jude Law plays Kate Winslet's brother in the film. So, she's in this tiny little village with, not a man in sight, but happens to encounter this one man who's
Yes,
Jude Law.
right. Yeah. So,
And Kate Winslet in the LA mansion is her counterpart is Jack Black. But really, there's the most amazing part of this film is that Kate Winslet out for a walk one day encounters a man who's in the film is a legendary screenwriter. The character's played by Eli Wallach,
which
and
is
he
just
lost his way in his Los Angeles neighborhood, and they develop this just incredibly charming, heartwarming friendship. And I mean, I'm verklempt.
oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the holiday right when we get off this. It's a great, great movie.
Yes, and I think, the main character is part of the reason I think that they clicked so well together. Now I personally know why. The script was written apparently with those four actors in mind. And so it just worked beautifully, and you will really see that. It's so evident in this movie. And Deb, for me, one of the best scenes in this film was the scene at the Blockbuster store with Jack Black and Kate Winslet. Jack Black plays like a movie composer
Yes.
in this film. Just the two of them just kind of talking about movie scores and how they came to be. And you really see Jack Black's comedic talent shine, and also his
musical talent too. I mean,
musical inclination. Yeah.
yeah, as he's picking up those movies and like riffing on the soundtracks and like what strikes a chord with the viewer, it's great. Everything about this movie is great.
And so there is this moment in that scene where if you blink, you miss it. But Dustin Hoffman makes a cameo in that scene. And so the circumstances surrounding that cameo are just pretty much like an only in Hollywood thing. He said on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, he was driving by the Blockbuster. The scene was completely unplanned. He was driving by the Blockbuster, saw the film crew, got out of his car to see what the commotion was all about. And because he knew writer and director Nancy Meyer, they were able to come up with something for him on the spot. And that is why you see Dustin Hoffman in that scene.
See, whenever I see a film crew and there's a commotion and I go over to see what's going on, I get escorted off.
Scene around you.
Great a scene for me.
And so,
they're not allowed within 100 yards of the film set.
Exactly. So there you have it. And, if you do see the film again, if you're going to see the film for the first time, pay attention to that scene and Dustin Hoffman's appearance, because he definitely was a camera ready.
I'm absolutely going to. That's great. I did not know that.
All right. So our next movie, again, released in 2006, and it is called The Last Holiday. This one starring Queen Latifah. And Deb, I was surprised to learn that this is technically a remake of a 1950s British film.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
It has that feel, though, now that you say it. Like, I can see it being an older film. It's got that there's something about it that's very timeless. This Queen Latifah, she can pull off helming a movie. And, not every actress can do that. It's her show. This is her movie. I think she's in every single scene.
Yeah.
She plays a woman who gets a terminal diagnosis. Again, and it's sort of a dated premise when you think about it, that, she only has so many months left to live, and decides she's going to take her little nest egg and go to the French Riviera. And
actually, it was the Czech Republic.
Okay.
At the Grand Hotel Poop.
Okay. So she decides she's going to blow her nest egg, and on, living her last few months in style, and goes to this fantastic vacation resort in the Czech Republic and buys herself a designer wardrobe and checks into the presidential suite and eats the most indulgent, amazing meals. The chef there, who's played by Gerard Depardieu, who's fabulous French actor. Timothy Hutton is the foil in the film. LL Cool J
LL
plays
Cool J was in it. Yeah.
dentist. Yeah, it's a very funny, very touching movie, and it's kind of a shame that these two movies maybe
Yeah.
canceled each other out a little bit in 2006.
Right.
So many people are streaming both of them like crazy because they're both fantastic movies. And this
I
one,
was going to say, both enjoyable to watch. And then, food, of course, with Gerard Depardieu as chef, really has a supporting role in the film. And the food that you see in the movie were actually dishes prepared by chefs from the Food Network. And so, my gosh, Deb, I was thinking this movie could have easily been on our list of flicks and food
food
back
movies.
in the spring.
That's true. It's a big part of this film, and how she, Queen Latifah has this very rich interest in food, and she has a dream of opening a restaurant. The character does, and her sort of soul food sensibility combined with the chef at the hotel's more French influenced haute cuisine.
Yeah.
The food aspect of the film is a very, very entertaining component for sure.
Yes, yes. All right, so we are going to move on. We've got a couple more films left on our list. The first one that we're going to tackle is a 2000 film starring Nicolas Cage, Téa Leoni, also Don Cheadle and Jeremy Piven, and that is the film Family Man.
Now, this is another film that did not garner a lot of attention. It fell a little flat, and the reason being, I think it was panned by critics because it was a little predictable. Predictable in the sense that it takes a very familiar premise, a premise we will be discussing
Yes.
in the next film, the what if premise. And Nicolas Cage plays this very successful, and I hope I'm remembering the movie right, because it's been a while since I've seen it, but I absolutely loved it when I saw it. And I'm, again, as I said, one of those people who just likes to sit back and watch the movie unfold and not worry that maybe it is predictable.
Yes, yeah.
But I'm like, there's a little kind of comfort in that predictability that
I agree.
Something good is coming. And he's this asshole Wall Street finance guy, and he has back, a million years ago was in love with the Téa Leoni character when they were in college, and she's, in the flashback is boarding her plane to go off to like a Peace Corps mission, or she's going to be abroad for a long time, and he's giving her the I love you forever and I'll never forget you, and when you get back, we're going to get married. And they end up not staying together and going their separate ways. And as a result, Nicolas Cage becomes this sort of jaded, commitment phobe, greedy guy. And Don Cheadle is the sort of angel character who gives him the opportunity to see what life is like had he ended up with Téa Leoni or had he stayed with her. And it's his life as a family man. And Téa Leoni's, interestingly enough, Téa Leoni, her characters had a similar path. She doesn't end up getting involved with anyone. She goes on to this very high intensity. She becomes a corporate lawyer, I think, a very intense career. And so she doesn't, her path is very similar, which I think is a little bit more of a modern approach to this kind of a film. It's not modern in the sense that you're going to assume that they decide that being together and having kids and maybe not being so successful is the better way. But it's also about, human connection and love and all that good stuff. And it's what a great cast and really entertaining, enjoyable movie, in my opinion. I had no beef with this movie at all. I loved it. I'd watch it again in a heartbeat.
And again, you really have to go into it not being too consumed by what this movie is based on or whatever. Just
Right.
really enjoy the film to really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And if some of those elements are sounding familiar, it is because it's a modern day take on this film that we're going to talk about next, down to the snow falling during a key moment in the film. And of course, we are talking about the film It's a Wonderful Life. It's a fitting end to this list with a classic, that's been hailed as a classic to define all holiday classics, and that is 1946's It's a Wonderful Life.
And I mean, what more can you say? There's no better Christmas film ever made. I mean, this movie, Jimmy Stewart, it's his movie. George Bailey, who has had just a horrible financial woes befall him, and decides that the people around him would be better off if he had never been born. And Clarence the Angel, who's sitting next to him at the little neighborhood bar tavern, gives him the opportunity to see what life would be like for these people if he had never been born. And I'm telling you, you can tell I'm getting choked up just talking about the premise. It's an exercise in showing you how you touch people's lives without realizing it.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. The message is incredible. The story is compelling. It's, even though it's an old film, it's absolutely relevant in its themes, and it still stands up today, which is why AFI and all these great, the critics who sometimes I poo-poo, are saying it's the definitive holiday movie, because it is. There's just, in my opinion, there's no debate.
It's really surprising when it came out in theaters the first time. It ended up that year as number 26 on the list in terms of box office revenue. But of course, as you said, in later years, I think especially after it was put in the public domain, that it really just gained legions and legions of fans over the decades. And it really, is now considered one of the greatest films of all time. One thing to note about the effects here, they used a new snow effect that was developed specifically for this film. Prior to that, studios used untoasted cornflakes that were painted white for snow. But the problem with the cornflakes is when the actor stepped on it, it actually made sound. So snap, crackle, pop. That the dialogue had to be dubbed in later because of that. So this new snow that they concocted was made with a chemical called foamite and soap and water. And that is the snow that you see for this movie. All right, so set your DVRs, make sure you've stocked up on the popcorn, and also for something different, we have for you as a sweet treat something called Christmas crack. Deb, have you ever?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Christmas crack.
Yeah, so it's essentially a chocolate candy bar that satisfies all your cravings. It's sweet, salty, crunchy, all of that. And this sweet treat, of course, is in tandem with a peppermint bark we had featured for you last week. And I can't wait to make it. I'm so looking forward to it. And both recipes are going to be available for you, as always, on gazellemagazine.com. Deb, what a wonderful list. Thank you so much for putting together these back-to-back lists for us. You do the hard work. I just help present them, but already so many movies to look forward to this
And
holiday season.
every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings, Trish. You're getting your wings. And I would like to point out that my dog has
Pebble.
gotten a hold of my Santa hat. So hopefully it will survive through to the holidays.
They are fascinated by that little furry ball there. All right. Well, thank you all for watching. We will see you again next time.